Good evening and welcome to episode 201 of the Private Property Podcast. I'm your host, Uzamantungwa Khumalo. It's a Tuesday edition of the Private Property Podcast, and if you're joining us for the first time, you have been missing out on great property content. Do make sure that you go to our Facebook or YouTube page and catch up on all the great content that we have brought to your screens. And to all our regular viewers, welcome back to the Private Property Podcast. We absolutely love having you join us every single weekday at 7 p.m. And as you know, we tackle a hot property topic and really get a good understanding of it so that we can make sure that we make the best informed decisions when it comes to our home ownership and our property journeys. Now, of course, one of the other things I absolutely love talking about here on the show are the other great shows that we have across the private property social media platforms. I am talking about the First Time Home Buyers Show that SD Klassen brings to your screen every single Wednesday at 8 p.m. So do make sure that you set that appointment if you're a first-time home buyer and want to get a good sense of what you can expect as a first-time home buyer, some of the mistakes that you should probably avoid, and of course, some tips and tricks that will help you on your home buying journey. Every Tuesdays and Thursdays at 8 p.m., Umbali Noko brings you the farming podcast, and that's all things agriculture. So if you've got those green fingers or you want to know about something that has to do with the agricultural landscape, well, that is the show for you. So do make sure that you catch that show this evening, just after this show tonight. That's something that you definitely do not want to miss out on. Chad over the weekend brings you the Home Shoppers Show, and that of course gives you a good sneak peek of all the great estates and complexes that you can look forward to if you want to live in them, and all the great amenities that they have on offer. So do make sure you catch Chad every Saturdays and Sundays at 1 p.m. on the Home Shoppers Show. And we go beyond your your laptop or your computer screens, but also come to your television screens with Mzansi Cribs Makeover every single Thursdays at 9:30. That is one that you do not want to miss out, with the repeats, of course, over the weekend. Well, we certainly do have quite a lot on offer for you here on Private Property and across our social media pages. Make sure to also follow myself at Zamantungwa_K on Twitter as well as on Instagram. Now, one of the other things that we absolutely love doing here on Private Property is, of course, having great competitions where you at home stand a chance of walking away with amazing prizes. And I'm talking this evening about the Sherlock Holmes competition. This is one that we are running for the next 12 weeks. We're now on week 5, and all you have to do for the Sherlock Holmes competition is to crack the riddle. Every single Monday morning, we share with you the riddle for the week, and you just need to solve the riddle and you stand a chance of walking away with 5,000 Rand voucher on Friday. And the riddle for this week, Sherlock Holmes hunt, is east of where the Centurion stands. You'll find a house of English beauty, space for your Aston, the Bentley and the Jag, and 4 beds up on Cornwall Hill. I know that some of the people who've stayed in Centurion say they have a idea of where this particular riddle is leading them. Well, do go on to www.privateproperty.co.za and certainly try your luck if you think you've spotted where the riddle leads you. And every Wednesdays and Thursdays, we also give away spot prizes. So if you've entered, make sure you tune in live every Wednesdays and Thursdays, where you can get to walk away with 500 Rand in cash. Have to be watching us live, because you have to, at the end of the show, raise your hand if we call your name in order to claim that prize. Well, it certainly is that easy to win on Private Property. So do make sure you follow us across our social media platforms. Certainly keep sharing the great content that we bring to your screens. And as I like saying, we like to make the property circle bigger as much as possible. Now, this evening, we're going to be talking about something that I know if you are looking to buy into a new development, then this is the episode that you do not want to miss. We're going to be looking at the responsibilities that a developer has to sectional title owners, and helping us better understand what these responsibilities are. Because I know sometimes you buy into a new development and you don't quite know what's what in the zoo. And I know I've heard of way too many people who, have buyer's remorse because they didn't quite understand how things worked, or they feel like they got a raw deal from the developer, or the developer didn't do what they were supposed to do, and all kinds of things. Well, to help us better understand what the responsibility of the developer is, I'm joined this evening by Quagraine, who's a real estate principal at properties.com. Ebo, good evening, and thank you so much for joining us.
Good evening, Zama, and thank you so much for having us again. I can't believe you said 201.
I know. It's been that many episodes already.
Oh my goodness.
I was to the viewers room, I was teasing Ebo offline. I was saying he's dressed like he is about to, raise capital. He's got a multi-million rand development that he's working on, and he has to get private investors, institutional investors. He's literally the man who's dressed for that job. And he was like, listen, I've got an appointment with you, and that's why I'm dressed for this one. And we absolutely love it, Ebo. And I think it probably just speaks to, your great work ethic, also, and the great work, of course, that you and your team do at properties.com. But we are talking this evening about developments and the responsibility that a developer has when it comes to sectional title owners, because I think it's one of those things that I've seen tends to be quite a big bone of contention. And, people will buy off plan. It's fantastic. You're excited. You see all these great, pictures. And then you move in, and just sometimes trouble starts before you even move in. It can start during the building phase. And by the time you move in, you're just so heartful. You're just like, you know what? Let me just move in. Maybe I'll feel a little better, but you never actually feel better. Perhaps let's just start, at the top. The first big sort of responsibility that a developer has, especially when people who are looking to buy into developments, to get a very good sense of what they should be expecting from the other side, because they probably don't quite know what other things, a developer is meant to do for them when they essentially become owners in that sectional title community.
So perhaps let's start off with the actual definition of who the developer is, because I've found so many times we call the wrong people the developers, and you end up posing your questions to people and just going round and round and never really coming to who must really respond to what. So the developer is actually the owner of the land, or the person that has the rights of extension over the land, right? And this person or this entity is actually supposed to go about first registering its intention of what it wants to do in this conversation, the sectional title scheme, and then get together all the people that would make this whole project really, really work. That's where your builder comes in. That's where the managing agent, after a few sales have happened, comes in. But us identifying the role of the developer is or who the developer is the principal or the foundational point that we really, really need to get to, because getting the wrong person will just give you all the stress in the world. Now let's come to what is the thing that you really need to start off looking out for, right? As you were asking. So you're starting off, you want to buy into this property, and you've seen this beautiful land, the lovely pictures, everything is well laid, and you're like, 1.5 million, I'm in. That's great. But the first thing you really want to look at is to say, what am I getting for this 1.5 million? Who is the team that this person has? So, usually there's that board outside, and it will show this land is approved to be registered for ABCD sectional scheme. And here's the architect, and we'll have all the different people on the project. Mm-hmm. Those are the people to actually start researching before you write an offer to purchase. Because, I'll start off from there.
Mm-hmm. And I think one of the big things is oftentimes people don't go to the extent of looking at that board or even being aware of that board those boards fascinate me a lot because I like knowing who the developer is, who the architect is, who are the subcontractors, and that's on small scale developments and to even like big commercial projects, because you also find it in big commercial projects. Essentially, any kind of project you'd find it there. In some of the big estates, you'd find that they'd also have that board in those estates. I mean, if you go into a Stain City, for example, before they built, once they've bought, that board will be there with these. This is the full team that's going to be handling the building of this particular property. So I look out for those things, but that's because I'm inquisitive. I like being in the know. Sometimes it's interesting. Oh, that's that's the architect handling this project. Oh, that's the builder handling this. Oh, that's the quantity surveying firm handling this. And not everybody at home is necessarily going to do that. And maybe they don't necessarily have to go to the extent of, researching some of them. I know when we look at industry news, we know some of the construction companies went under. Now you see them on a new project. You're thinking, okay, how are they going to manage that when they couldn't finish the previous one? So we're able to like skinner about it, right? But of course, to many viewers at home, they're not privy to some of the industry news and some of, the skinner that we would typically have about it. So when they're now dealing with, they see, and usually you would probably see an ad on, now they use social media. They've got beautiful pictures, the landscaping, the mock-ups. They haven't broken ground at all. So if you go there, there'll probably be, a little tent with, sales agents who are building. But you've seen these gorgeous mock-ups and you're thinking, look, this is where I want to buy. I think let's first start it off at that stage, right? Because we've also seen many people get scammed when they sign up for things at that stage, only to find that there wasn't really anything that was going to be built. People's deposits were, essentially taken and whatnot. So how do people at that stage almost verify that, oh yes, this is a credible developer, and everything that is going to happen from this point forward, me signing on, this is going to be smooth sailing going forward, as we obviously going to be unpacking more responsibilities that the developers are going to have. Because I think that's probably the first potential hiccup that viewers at home might face, where you see the ads, you love what you're seeing, but we know that they haven't broken ground and they won't break ground until they've made a sale up to a certain point. So then how do they in those early stages almost verify that these are the right people? I know that when I sign here, I'm not going to suddenly in 3 months time hear that, no, these people have run away with my money, wada, and all that jazz.
So the first part, you're so right. Oftentimes we look at so many different things, right? Because we are privy to certain conversations. So to the average Joe, the first point is actually going and once you've seen that, that 360 with everything like you've explained, once you've seen it, there's always a name associated, right? That it's a Quagraine developments coming up. Now, it will always, of course, say a Quagraine is the developer, for example. You want to then, before you do anything in terms of putting an offer to purchase or anything, have this coffee, not with the estate agent, if you can, but with a Quagraine, if they'll give you time. If it's a big company, you're probably not going to get the time for them to sit with you. But then that would also tell you that it's actually a company that you can find more information on with a little Google search, starting off with the CIPC database. So the developer is not always the actual builder. So you will not find them on the NHBRC, but you can, of course, check on the CIPC database. In South Africa, we're also very lucky. So we've got your big companies who are usually parts of SAPOA, which is the South African Property Owners Association. And oftentimes, most of these developers, one way or the other, are part of SAPOA. Maybe start off from there and search them out. Now, once you're searching them out, your interest is not only to just find out, does this company exist? Mm-hmm. The real question is, what was the last development this company did? And where is it? Because where it is, you need to go there. I always say to people, buying property is not like stopping by the side of the robot, seeing that guy with the Coca-Cola can and saying, here's my 20 rand, I'm buying. you need to do a little bit of searching, because if you don't, it's a 20-year journey, it's a 30-year journey, and it's going to cost you. So spend that few minutes to check all these little things. CIPC database, if you're on there, you find out who the directors are. A little bit of searching will tell you other companies they've owned or not owned, but then many people won't really do that. So find out the last development they did, go to the development. Critical question, ask the people that have just bought there, how are they post the purchase? Are they happy with what they bought? What are some of the challenges they are facing? And how is it being resolved? You know, problems will always come, right? But it's how it's getting solved that makes all the difference. Because if a problem is here and I duck, you don't get me, so then it's a problem. But if a problem is there and we're talking about it and we're solving it, then we're actually making progress. So I'll start there.
And that's such a good thing to note, Eva, because one of the big things that we do take for granted sometimes is problems will occur, as in any kind of, any other industry. And it really is about how the developer deals with them. We know of the different horror stories that I'm not going to name names on the show, but they've been other developers who are now infamous for not resolving certain issues timeously. I've heard of some developments not being properly snagged, and by the time people move in, issues that had a proper snag being done and the snag list being attended to, you wouldn't be having those kinds of issues. Because some of the issues are you just need to bring in the snag company, and because they come in before occupation takes place, or they sign off and they do a thorough snag, because some of it you can visually see what the issue is, unlike certain issues where you can't actually visually see them. But of course, different developers have different ways of doing things. Sometimes they're on very bullish sort of timelines, so they kind of move through it. And that's certainly one of the things that is important to viewers at home to take note of. Look at their reputation, look at how they solve issues that they have. I've heard of people ending up just selling their unit because they're so frustrated with always having issues with certain developers. So you really do want to make sure that you don't find yourself in that kind of frustrating situation, because it ends up costing you quite a lot of time and a lot of money, especially if you, for example, want to live there. Now you have to find a different place and you feel so frustrated, you want to move. Those are just issues you don't want to have to deal with at all. And of course, to you at home, we are taking your questions and comments. We're looking at responsibilities that the developer has to the sectional title scheme owners. And I see we've already got a question here coming through from Glad Shrinda. Glad asking, whose responsibility is it to allocate the right of exclusive use area in terms of Section 27 of the sectional title scheme developers or the body? So is it the developer or the body corporate?
Oh my goodness, your viewers so on point.
Of course, we do this daily. It's almost like we come to class and we show up when we have different guests on and they tell us about different things. We go home, we check, we end up calling, our managing agents. There are all these things that we do because, like we say, we want to learn more about property so we can make better informed decisions, and we can able to, read what the act says because it's publicly available. So that's the caliber of viewers that we have, people who are already in the know, and many of us, of course, who are learning from the beginning. So with that one, then, Ebo, whose responsibility is it when it comes to the exclusive use areas?
So straight to the point, the developer is responsible for the exclusive use area allocation, okay? That's one of the things that he has to do when they're registering, so that they know which, the biggest part of the developer, and maybe let me just go straight into it with this question. The greatest responsibility of the developer comes all at the initial stages of the sectional scheme. How they handle it will 99.99% determine how things will go in that body corporate, at least for the next 5 to 10 years. Exclusive use area allocation is a developer's responsibility, and that comes as part of the bigger responsibility, which is the participation quota of each unit. Some of you would have heard me speak about this, I think, when the last time you had me on. participation quota basically being how do you participate in terms of levy contributions and everything based on your unit size as a bigger or as a smaller section of the bigger body corporate. So that's all determined by the developer from the beginning. And it is actually documented because your deed will be based on that.
We've got very great questions. I see Martha, shooting with quite a number of different questions. We'll approach them one by one. I can already see Martha's probably got an interest in new developments. And I think it becomes one of those areas that so many of us sometimes don't quite know well, especially if you're going to be buying off plan, that there's so many things that happen from the moment you kind of sign to when you take on occupation. So I'll start with the first question that Martha posed, and she says, mine is on the plans versus the actual. Can I get the developer to put in something in the unit that does not appear on the plan, or I just didn't see because I assumed it would be there? Those plans aren't always easy to read to a layman, which is very true. Because, I mean, you're buying off plan, you don't understand sometimes everything. I'm able to navigate a plan because I've viewed quite a few of them. I know how they would draw doors, windows, and everything. But if there's a certain thing that, because they look differently, right, when you're looking at the plan. So in the event where there's a particular thing that you want the unit to have that isn't on the original sort of plan, are you able to have a conversation with the developer around that?
Okay, so I'll answer this question in twofold. The one is to say anything on the outside would definitely be very difficult to have put in because the developer would have already registered the scheme, and the scheme would have been approved based on those plans of the scheme. Because everything on the outside is literally going to be what is coming as part of common property or vis-a-vis also exclusive use area. For example, you've got this lovely garden, which is just for you. Those will be some. Now, in terms of fixtures within this, so let's say you now come into the inside. The inside of your unit is always negotiable. However, developers also need to have it on a very fair basis to make sure that other people are not disadvantaged, right? So if, for example, let's say countertops, every countertop in there is, what do we call it, granite tops, and they all of a certain color and a certain make and a certain cost, that's okay. If yours now all of a sudden has to have a special lift within it, that's a cost to the developer, and the developer will discuss it with you, but you probably find that it will raise your exclusive use within the scheme because now you are enjoying something that others will not be enjoying. So therefore, your participation quota, again, will have to be a little bit higher. So you can have these conversations, but you should bear in mind that it would not come at a similar standard price with everyone. You'll probably pay more for the capital, but also going forward in terms of your levies, possibly.
Now, Ebo, I think what are some of the responsibilities that developers sometimes kind of try to evade or sneakily kind of don't want to, I'll say, carry out that viewers at home should try and be aware of?
Okay, so especially those, you've probably come across this where something is being built in phases, right?
Yes.
So there's a part in the act that basically says when phase 1 is done and we're waiting to build phase 2, the developer actually does not have any voting rights anymore. But most developers actually may or choose to not know that they don't have voting rights anymore. So therefore, they become very responsible. And when I say responsible, I mean for every decision, right? Who to contract, who your managing agent should be, and all of this. That is not their job. That's one of the things they do so that they can actually earn more income on your assets, so to speak. The basic first fundamental responsibility of a developer is that the moment they sell, so basically, when I own this scheme, the moment I sell this unit to Zama, it stops becoming mine and it becomes ours. So So it's for me and Zama. So therefore, my first responsibility there is to start planning for what we call the annual general meeting. In terms of now we've sold off phase one, everyone is done. So we actually need to hand over the scheme to all of us so that we can make decisions together. That's often, that's the biggest responsibility that is often ignored or intentionally left by developers, because that's where the bodies will come in to manage and the developer gets some kickbacks or whatever they get on the back.
We are taking your questions and comments this evening. We're talking about the responsibilities that developers have to sectional title owners. We're going to go to Facebook again. We've got one from Martha. I'm going to come back to some of the other questions. I just want to go to Jason de Jong's question here saying, with regards to the storage levy, what I've seen is that most sectional titles include that in their statements of the owner. Why is that so?
Ooh, sewer. I don't know why I didn't anticipate this, right?
And it's a huge one, because the amount, I mean, even that, what is it, domestic fluent amount, it is a huge amount, and it becomes a huge, and you're thinking, why is it 500, 600? What am I paying for? It's close to the levy amount. What is this for? So explain this one to us, Ebo.
So I was trying to look on my desk because I literally have one of those now, where the owner is asking, they just bought and they have to pay close to $800 for sewer. And they're like, why do we have to pay for sewer if we also paying to the COJ for the refuse and all of that? And there's this constant confusion. Sadly, so when the developer develops the scheme, they're supposed to register all your different accounts, right, to the board for the body corporate, and that's very, very important. Now, oftentimes when that is not done properly, you find the body corporate incurring big statements or bills 3, 4, 5 years down the line, where COJ just slams you with this big amount and says you owe. Sewer. Let's come back to the sewer part. The sewer account belongs to the body corporate when it's created. Your managing agent will probably then divide it based on your participation quota for each person, or oftentimes, because it's running through the common property, will just apply an equal amount for everyone. Now, that would then be, if it's on the levy statement as such, something that you pay for. If it's not, then it means that you should be really, really looking at the statements that you get from the COJ, especially those in homeowners associations. So homeowners associations, you've got the full earth, but you don't, how do we put it? You've got the full earth, so therefore you're getting your own sewer bill. And it's very important that you look at those statements as well and attend to it, because sometimes you don't get the statements 3, 4, 5 years down the line you want to sell, and you get hit with this 1 million rand amount that you need to pay. So
look,
to answer her question,
what I will say, I'm not in any homeowners association. It's only the normal body corporate, and it is that bone of contention. In some of the properties, it's, we've got a very standard, I'll say it's relatively standard amount, whereas in the other, you get charged for water, and this is your water consumption, and that's it, and it's a nice low amount. And when I compare, that property and look at the COJ statement, I'll say the running cost of the property is then actually low, versus here where I'm paying for a high sewage charge, where if I were to be billed for water, the water wouldn't get to that amount because I don't consume that, kind of water, or even a family, let's say of 2 or 3, would not consume that kind of water. So it becomes just this very complicated, I'll say, process that I think so many of us aren't kind of aware of, and how to go about it. So thank you so much for that question, Jason. I see, Ebo, you want to add on to that?
Yeah, I was saying, so where you feel there's a, something untoward, the simplest thing to do is to ask your managing agent for the actual statement of the account relating to sewer, because a lot of developers also, when they start off, know that people don't really look at these things. So you find that it's not even an account relating to that body corporate, but it's another account that is settling another debt. And you just have it, and you guys keep paying and paying and paying and not really seeing what you're paying for. Easiest way, ask the managing agent if it's an established one already, ask them for the sewer account and ask, are you being billed on a per quota basis, or is it simply divided in equal amounts for everyone? And if the answer is yes, compare. That's very important, because if you don't do that, you're going to get caught. Also, we confuse oftentimes sewer and utilities like water. Most body corporates have oftentimes not metered water separately. I don't know why, because where we come from, we advise every sectional scheme that we go into, meter the water separately. Yes, it costs a little bit more, but it's a once-off capital expense you do that ensures that the person that is staying there alone doesn't end up paying water for people that are in a 10 unit, like 10 people in one unit type of situation. So it's, we need to separate those two.
And we're taking more of your questions and comments. We're talking developers and the responsibility that they have to sectional title owners. Going back to some of Martha's question, Martha saying, can we also touch on the handover of the complex by the developer to the owner's body corporate, or the body corporate if it's already established? That's a big one there. Eva, can you help us with that one? Because I know that's another contentious one, as you were already alluding to earlier on.
So it's funny, but this is the one that gets everybody. So I get this all the time when you go into a place and then an owner says, actually, I'm not part of the body corporates. The body corporates is those people. And then you're like, no, let's come back. The handover was done wrong, because the moment the developer sells and is done, you're supposed to have what we call the annual general meeting, the first of its kind. At that meeting, the developer automatically chairs that meeting, right? At that meeting, there is a set agenda of things that should be done, which is in the Sectional Title Schemes Management Act. If any of you want a copy of it, you can just hit me up and we'll be able to share a copy with you. If you want a physical one, at properties.com, we've got it, and we'll post it to you so that you have it. You may have to answer a question for that, because it's a gift. But anyway, come back to us. That has to be done. Based on the agenda, one of the things that happens is that a body that we call trustees needs to be elected. Those trustees become the people responsible for the day-to-day running of the complex. Now, we often find that these people have their own jobs. They don't have time to bill levies and do all of that. So they go out to appoint a managing agent. If the developer was a seasoned developer, they would already have come into that meeting with a managing agent, and they would have imposed the managing agent upon the owners, and the owners, not knowing better, will just accept that person thinking it is right to do so. No, it's not. At that first AGM, anyone that is there can propose who they want to actually manage the body corporate if they've got experience from the past, and get equal quotations, and then you all get to vote on. So then the trustees have the option of actually going with this managing agent, because that's what the managing agent comes to do the work of the trustees for a fee. So those are the basic things that needs to be done at the AGM, or from the developer to the owners from the beginning. If that's not done correctly, it then causes all these unnecessary fights, and because then we don't know what role we play as owners within the scheme.
And that last one from Umartha saying, can I take an expert for the inspection before signing off payment from the bank to the developer? Is it worth the money, or should we do this as a body corporate?
So on that, so when you buy with a bond, right, it's actually the bank's asset. So you find that the bank has certain thresholds and certain requirements from the developer which needs to be met. And the bank will have to insist on those things being done before they actually hand over the money. So as a new buyer, I would first start off with my bank and ask my bank, what are the things that you are requesting for? Has the developer met them, yes or no? Okay. You still are obliged. I mean, you still can. You're at liberty to do this. Take someone to go and check for you to say, according to the snag list, I was supposed to get tiles that are laid this way. They're not supposed to be triangular. They're all supposed to be horizontal, and you can do all of that. Oftentimes, 99.9% of the time, you will find that the developer will do those things really well because they know that the bank requires it for them to get paid. The smaller things would be where, and I have this with a client of ours that bought into a brand new development where there's only 5 of them. And the moment they moved in, you find that the floor starts to shift, right? Those are the small things. The things you don't see are the ones that I would go with an expert to go and find for me. Because the things you see, believe me, they would have covered it. The things you don't see, if you know the history of the developer, if you're suspecting anything, go with someone, let them check it. Is it worth your money? The real question you should be asking is it worth you not spending the money to make sure that you're going to have the comfort, as opposed, it's not a cost, it's an investment. So if it's an investment and you want to, and you should, make the investment and go with an expert. Let it be checked out so that you can sleep at night knowing you didn't buy a lemon, but you bought a great home.
And I think, I think one of the other things with that is important to note is, and I'm glad that you highlighted how a client of yours bought into a small development where there's only 5 of them. Where is the small development like that? Because we're seeing quite a lot of them crop up, especially in a lot of suburbs where, the yards were fairly big and they buy that particular property and they go sectionalize it and there'll only be 5 units. I know it's appealing to quite a lot of people because you're still a complex, but it's small. So it's not one of those big complexes where there are many people. In the event where it's small like that, and oftentimes those would be done by the Ebos and the Zamantungas who, are able to raise the capital. And we know that this is our margins when we go into that kind of project. You actually probably do want to do the work of getting an inspector yourself and just do that inspection, because it's not a big development like we're used to with a lot of the big ones where their checks are in place relative to smaller developments. So the moment you see that it's slightly small and there's going to be, let's say, less than even 15 of you, I'd say even 20 is still small, probably spend those, because inspection is also, it's not going to cost you 50,000 rands. So it's quite a nominal amount in relative terms, because an inspector might actually come and find that actually Ebo or Uzama were cutting costs, so many costs that they bypassed all sorts of things, and you now go and you buy this property, you get it bank financed, only to end up essentially having buyer's remorse because you find these issues at a later stage. So I think also assess those kinds of issues, because with the smaller ones and smaller companies, where a lot of property entrepreneurs, because I've seen that they go into that space where, they'll build a few things and they'll put up a prospectus. Sometimes they approach us to be investors in their projects. So we see a lot of it. And I think their cost cutting happens, and cost cutting typically happens, but you also don't want the kind of cost cutting that was going to ultimately cost you money in the long run in that property. So I think do perhaps invest in the inspection, as Ebo has put it. And every episode, Ebo, that we've done on property inspections has always, viewed it as it's an investment. And you really end up knowing that I've bought this. This is what, an expert has said. And these are the issues that the property has, or there's no issue that was flagged. So you know that you are buying a property that is in a good state, and you're not going to have any issues with it. Now, Ebo, I can see we're slowly running out of time. We want to make time, of course, for Umbali with the farming podcast coming up. Before we wrap up, though, I think any final tips for our viewers at home when it comes to making sure that they are aware of the responsibilities or what the developer needs to do as they are about to buy into a development, whether they are buying off plan or they are buying, it's already built, they can view it, they can see it, but it's still the developer who is selling that particular unit. What should we, if we take one thing away from this episode, what would that thing be that we just need to be aware of when dealing with developers?
Again, on this, I'll answer in twofold. If you're buying a brand new property, basically you're buying off plan, nothing has been built yet, I would do the following. I would take the actual offer to purchase. I would go and sit down and scrutinize it personally. And where I do not understand anything, to go and sit with an actual conveyancer who will be able to explain to me every single step of the way what I'm really signing for and what I'm supposed to get and what I'm not supposed to get. It's very, very important that you do that. So I always make this joke, right? How my first property purchase could have actually made all the difference between what we've become now versus what we were then. And it was a new development. I saw it. It looked beautiful. It was glossy. It was everything that you wanted. But for some odd reason, I got handed this thick offer to purchase, and I just couldn't make my head around it. And I kept on reading it, and it just didn't make sense. So safe to say, after seeing this document and sitting with my conveyancer at the time, I walked away from that deal, and that was the biggest blessing I had, having the conveyancer actually look at it with me, because there were so many clauses hidden in there that would have not helped us in any way. And up till now, that body corporate is struggling. There's no structure and there's no peace there. So brand new off plan, please do that. 2, you are buying where the property is already built. The developer is you can see everything in place. You're not buying off plan. You can see it, and now you're making the purchase. Nowadays, property inspection in South Africa is not that expensive. It was a novelty profession. It's now one of those things that everybody has access to. Get a property inspector, go check it out, make sure. So also everything that is being built, the NHBRC is your first resource point, right? Make sure you have the builder's details, because if there's cracks and it's structural, you are insured against that. You'll get your money. I know for a fact also that oftentimes when the developer is done, they go away and you now caught and not able to follow up this process. Don't do it alone. Team up with the other owners who are having the same problem. Go to NHBRC. If the development is not more than 5 years old, they will certainly help you, because there's an insurance in place. And that person who is registered with an NHBRC license as the builder, not the developer, has provided an insurance which you can claim against. Okay. Mm-hmm. So those would be the 2 tips I'll take from a developer point of view. Maybe let me add a bonus. The managing agent. Make sure that you guys, as the new owners coming in, identify well with the managing agent that is being put in place. It's a relationship thing at the end of the day. If you, as a collective of owners, cannot have this company represented by this person on a relationship basis, you are allowed to call an owners meeting and change the person. You don't have to be stuck with them forever because a developer handed them over to you. No, you can always call a special general meeting, and at the special general meeting, basically say, we will change our managing agents. We will do nothing with them anymore. Thank you so much for your service, and you move on. Those are some of the things you really want to take away from this special episode. 201, you said, Zama?
Yeah. Yeah,
Go.
we were celebrating a special episode yesterday, episode 200. It was quite a treat, I think, for viewers at home and myself. And I think one of the things that I definitely did say that the Quagraine brothers are, two people that we're definitely going to continue having on the show. We had both of you a number of times last year.
You mean the other imposter?
Excuse me?
You mean the other imposter?
You see, you can already see the sibling rivalry brewing, but we're definitely going to have both of you on the show for the many months to come on the podcast. We absolutely love getting insights from both of you. Ebo, as usual, it's always such a pleasure talking property with you. Thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Same here. Thank you so much, Zama, and thank you to your listeners. Cheers.
And that is Ebo Quagraine, who is a real estate principal at properties.com. Do check them out if you might need some of their services. You certainly want to reach out to them should you require it. Well, that's it from me, Zamantungwa, and the rest of the Private Property Podcast team. I do not leave you alone this evening. I do hand over to Umbali Nwogo, who will be bringing you this evening's edition of the Farming Podcast.
Hi, I'm Clifton Smithers. I live in Belito, where my partners and I run a business called Union 3. As a family, we chose to move here about 6 years ago. What attracted us to the area was the safe and relaxed lifestyle of the North Coast. We're surrounded by so much natural beauty, and we love that it's so casual. It's just not as intense as a busy city. In fact, that's one of the main reasons there's so many people moving into the area. There's some amazing lifestyle estates out here. We've got Zimbali, Brettonwood Estate, and Zimbiti, to name a few. The Belito Lifestyle Centre caters to everyone's needs. There's also some smaller commercial centres like Tiffany's and Salt Rock. There's some excellent restaurants to choose from, and there's a really wide variety of activities on offer. From mountain biking out on the trails to surfing at any one of the beaches, there really is something for everyone. This quiet little town really comes alive over the weekend. The live concerts in the farmers market at the Lychee Orchard is very popular. With the new international airport just 15 minutes down the road and the unmatched lifestyle that this place offers, it's no wonder that the North Coast is the fastest growing town in South Africa. My family and I absolutely love a chat, and this is our neighborhood.